Episode 10, Know Your Joe, originally posted August 17, 2012. When Hasbro started the Real American Hero line of G.I. Joe, they faced the daunting task of trying to win over kids like me who were hardcore Star Wars collectors. Back then, when it came to 3 3/4 sized action figures, Star Wars was king. But right out of the gate, Hasbro pretty much struck gold by implementing 3 things into their toy line that would set G.I. Joe apart from all the rest, including Star Wars. The first and second were the most obvious: added articulation and accessories. These in themselves were enough to win any kid over, but they decided to go for the knockout punch with file cards. Unlike Star Wars, G.I. Joe didn't have a movie to introduce us to the numerous characters in the line, so Hasbro made the extra effort to make short and detailed write-ups of each character they produced. These file cards had pretty much everything you needed to know about each character: their real names, places of birth, their military and educational background, their primary and secondary weapons of choice, and finally, some interesting bits and snippets about their personalities. These cards varied in their approach and how they would tell the stories about the Joes. Some were quite humorous, like the firefighter Barbecue, who is what you would call your basic party animal. He would open up bottles with his teeth, pick up quarters with his ears, and wrap his lips completely around the bottom of a quart Coke bottle. Or the assault trooper Crazy Legs, who could have been the greatest organist in the world if his fingers hadn't been too short. A classical musical enthusiast, he's been known to come rushing into battle with a weird light in his eyes and humming a selection from Johann Sebastian Bach. But others were a little bit more serious, talking about some traumatic childhood experiences, like the Joe Night Spotter Lowlight, who was actually afraid of the dark as a kid, until he got lost in the woods during a hunting expedition with his dad. He was found 3 weeks later with a flashlight, his rifle, and a grin from ear to ear. And finally, Light Infantryman Hit and Run, who was orphaned at a young age and grew up in a county institution from which he escaped with alarming regularity, climbing down sheer walls and running for miles across the plains in the middle of the night. When asked what he was running away from, he replied, "I'm not running away from anything. I'm practicing." He went from the custody of the county directly into the army. And these were just the tip of the iceberg. There were so many more interesting stories that I still remember to this day. To put it bluntly, I loved these cards, and I actually collected them more than the figures themselves. Whenever a friend of mine would get a new Joe, I would ask for their file card until I had at least 3 or 4 times as many file cards as I had actual figures. I even made file cards of the Joes I couldn't get my hands on, usually the vehicle drivers, just to be complete. By this time, I had the Order of Battle comics published by Marvel. These were essentially the G.I. Joe file cards in comic book form. So lifting the information off the comics, I would type up the file cards of Joes I didn't have onto a paper, cut it up into strips, and paste the word strips onto a cardboard cut up into the shape of a file card. How's that for literal cut and paste? So with all these file cards in hand, you must be wondering, what in the world did I do with them? Well, I read them of course, but aside from that, my friends and I formulated a game similar to trump cards. Remember those? Most file cards, at least the Joes, had similar details. Each soldier had a serial number composed of a first, middle, and last batch of numbers, as well as a military grade or rank, and we would use these details to do battle. So we'd split the deck of file cards amongst ourselves and take turns calling out a specific detail from the card we had in play, like first number, and the person with the highest first number would get everyone else's card in play, and we'd keep on doing this till one guy had all the cards. So yeah, nothing overly complicated, basically just trump cards. I was the designated keeper of the cards, a responsibility I took to heart. In fact, one time, the whole deck was confiscated, for no reason, I swear we were playing during a break time, by a teacher in school. I promptly told my parents about it when I got home, and the next day, the teacher gave them back to me, no questions asked. And up to this day, these file cards are the only things left from my childhood toy collections. I just never had the heart to throw or give them away. Anyway, to finish up, I'd like to share a few interesting facts about these file cards I learned over time. From the first year the 3 3/4 Joe line was released in 1982 till the line died down sometime in the 90s, pretty much all the file cards, and we're talking hundreds of characters, who were written by one guy, Larry Hama, who also wrote the original Marvel comic run of G.I. Joe, which lasted over 100 issues as well. He's widely considered by many Joe collectors as the godfather of the modern era of G.I. Joe. Many of the Joes were named by Hama after family, friends, and comrades who died during the Vietnam War, and others after historical figures, like the Japanese-American silent weapons expert Quick Kick, who was named MacArthur S. Ito after U.S. World War II General Douglas MacArthur and Japanese Lieutenant General Takeo Ito. In recognition for his contributions, popular G.I. Joe member Tunnel Rat is actually modeled after Larry Hama's likeness. In choosing the birthplace of each Joe, Hama made sure they came from as many parts of the US as possible. To keep track and to make sure no place was over or underused, he had a US map displayed in his workplace, plotting out where each Joe was from. At one point, Hasbro realized that Hama was using names of real people for his file cards, and they wanted in on the action. So for a time, Joe started being named after Hasbro designers and other employees. And they all came from Rhode Island, which is where Hasbro's global headquarters is located. And finally, as for the Cobra Troopers, since the file card wasn't actually about an individual, but about a class of trooper, the birthplace was designated as Various Countries. As a kid, I thought Various Countries was an actual country, called Various. So that's about all I've got on these file cards. So how about you guys? Do any other Joe collectors out there have any fond memories about these file cards? Any particular favorites of the bunch? Go ahead and comment down below. Let's talk Joe. Thanks for checking out Stories from the Toy Shelf Redux. For more stories, please like and subscribe to this channel. Click on the notification bell for updates or visit my website at storiesfromthetoyshelf.com and follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Until the next one.